All right, so today we're going to go through some advanced axe throwing techniques and tips. So first we're going to go through drops, then we're going to focus on accuracy, then we're going to focus on what you should do to practice. So to make sure that you're not having any drops, you need to make sure you have the right tool in place. Make sure you have an axe meant for axe throwing. And axes meant for axe throwing look something like this, where the blade is extremely sharp. It's sharp to the touch. If I were to go down it, I would get stitches. And the first 2 to 2.5 inches are extremely thin and sharp. This axe isn't meant for splitting wood. It's not there to take down trees. It's there simply to stick on the axe. So make sure that your axes are always kept in a razor sharp condition. Now, the other thing is, depending on your technique, you may require an axe like the Commander where it has a sharp end where it sticks into quite nicely to make sure that you're not dropping. Another one is the Ace of Spades because it's got a nice curve. When you have the curve, like for example, when this hits the board, that whole force is spread across the full 4 inches of the blade. With the Ace of Spades as an example, when you have a curved edge, you really are compacting that whole force in about 1.5 inches. So it drives into the board and it's easier for it to stick through. So depending if you're having issues with drops, there's different things you can do. Either you can get a different axe or you can focus on how you're gonna either rotate your axe to make sure that the tip goes in first. Now, there's different techniques you can use. If you come with a stock handle that is either 16 or 17 inches, generally speaking, you can throw it from the 12-foot mark. So this one, I know I'm gonna land tip in first. So there, the tip went in first, and this is almost the perfect throw. The perfect throw would have gone in a bit deeper where it would have covered the majority of it. When you go at an angle, you actually end up getting more than 4 inches of coverage. So that was almost the perfect throw. It was just sticking out a little bit, so I wasn't getting full coverage. So that's the type of throw you want. Ideally, you want the axe to get as much coverage as possible because the way the World Axe Throwing League works is if, let's say we get a kill shot, what the World Axe Throwing League cares about is that you're breaking paint on both sides. If I were to over-rotate, you'll see that that same throw wouldn't have worked, but if I landed flat, I would have gotten the points. So you have to outweigh whether the type of board that you're using. In this case, we're using pine. So SPF wood is brutal. Like I would never in a million years think to try landing flat. I couldn't even land that myself flat. You see, it's so hard to stick. When you have cottonwood, when you have poplar, no problem. I will adjust my throw all day to make sure I'm always landing flat. When I have hardwood boards, I'm always going tip first. So when you land tip first, you minimize the drops. So that's the thing that you have to focus on first. Eliminate all drops. Think about the boards that you're using, think about the axe that you're using, and focus on whatever the technique it is that you're using and be able to adjust it. The second thing we're going to focus on right now is accuracy. So how do you develop accuracy in axe throwing? And I'll show you a quick variation of throws of what I see generally people do. So when you come in axe throwing for the first time, you've never really done it before. And so, you know, the immediate inclination is to throw it like it's like a baseball. So you're throwing it overhand, you know, you're giving it all your force because it requires force to stick, but it doesn't need that. For axe throwing, when you have the right tool, it's much easier just to guide the axe. And what you're trying to do to improve accuracy is you're trying to minimize all that movement. So you don't want to be swaying back and forth. I like to square up. It's almost like a boxing stance that I like to take, where I'm square. Well, boxers generally stand to the side, but I'm actually fully square to the board. So I'm taking that same kind of boxing runner stance position, and I have no movement side to side. So my feet are completely planted. Think of your feet as being glued into concrete. That's what you want. You want no movement. You want to envision that concrete going all the way up to your thighs. You're not moving anywhere. So then you've minimized the movement completely from your feet, from your hips, and you're not having that swaying motion. So that's the first thing you want to do. So you want to line up. You want to make sure you're square to the target. The second thing you want to do is make sure that you're not moving your shoulder at all. If your arm or your elbow is doing this, you've already lost accuracy. So in order to get to that level of throwing accurately, you cannot have any of this. If you want to reach those elite levels on a global competition, you cannot have any sort of motion. And so you'll find that in order to minimize it, your elbow has to stay straight, you bring the axe back, and you literally just guide and release. So you'll see my technique, it's almost like when you take a basketball shot. It's up, straight. The elbow's always straight, and typically what you do is you have the elbow pointing to the basketball net. This is no different. You want that elbow pointing towards the target. You want to make sure it's perfectly lined. And literally the only motion I'm doing, because I'm not moving my hips, I'm square to the board, I'm literally just bringing it back, release. So I'm literally throwing a dart, and that's what I'm focused on doing. So in order to improve accuracy, think about any sort of movement you may have. If you have a step throw for waddle, you don't have to step into it, eliminate that step. If you have any sort of throw that can't be replicated easy, whether it's you throwing it like a baseball sideways, whether it's you kind of coming down like a tomahawk, that's not going to work. You have to make sure you minimize it. I've seen a lot of top throwers globally actually start with their axe right beside their head. And it's either touching it, and I'm going to move my axe or my hat to the side, but it's either touching their face or it's slightly away, and they'll actually start like this. So part of what they're doing is they're minimizing the movement that I have when I take it back. So a lot of axe throwers typically do this. What they're doing is they're minimizing that part that goes back, and they're starting here and then just releasing. So you've already minimized that backward motion. So that is another great technique. I have yet to adapt it, but I think it's absolutely brilliant because there actually really is no point to this kind of what I'll call a backswing. If you start right here and you're just releasing it, it's a simple motion of just doing this. And that's all you're doing for accuracy. So there's different techniques you can use, but the key of it all in order to get accurate is eliminate that movement completely. All right, the last thing that we want to talk about is practice. Practice, practice, practice. And none of this stuff comes naturally. Like, there's people who might have natural talent that maybe do not need as much practice, but in order to get to that level, to the elite level of the top throwers globally, everyone's practicing. What I found during quarantine time, during the virus period, was a lot of people built targets in their house. They put them in the garage, in the basement, out in their backyard, and what they would do is they would just practice for a couple hours a day. And there's a lot of names out there right now that I never had heard of before, or I had heard of before, but they were never even in the top 50, and now they're in the top 10 globally. And that all comes down to practice. They've honed down their technique, they've minimized the accuracy, they have no drops, and they've just been practicing, practicing, and practicing. So practice is a key fundamental thing. For those who are lucky enough to be able to build a target at home, I would highly recommend it because that's the best type of practice you'll be able to get. To be able to, get off the couch and maybe do it for 30 minutes, 25 minutes a day, or even a couple of days a week makes an enormous difference. I generally get to practice, once every 3 to 4 months right now, so my accuracy is not what it used to be. But if I were to come back and I practice, let's say, every day for 30, 40 minutes, it would improve drastically because I'll have that muscle memory back of what I used to have. Now, for practice, the one thing that we encourage people to do is the V pattern motion. And so the way the V pattern motion is, and for those who don't understand the World Axe Throwing League rules, is the kill shots are worth 8 points. Those are active on the 5th and on the 10th throws. Those are worth 8 points. The bullseye is worth 6. So the pattern that we always want to practice is the V. You go kill shot, bullseye, kill shot. And that way you get into the motion of being able to move up from the bull to the kill and down back from the kill to the bull. So if first I'm going to start with the right kill, I'm going to line up, I'm going to throw. And so did I get it? Did I not? I just got it. Now I'm going to go back down to the bull. So bull is next. I just did the kill. Now I have the bull. Now I'm going up to the kill shot. Remember, the World Axe Throwing League, when you get into overtime, you have to alternate kills. So you have to get equally as good on the right as you do on the left. So I'm going to line up to this kill. I'm going to throw. Missed. I'm going to go back down to bull. So those are the main things you want to practice on, is the kills and the bulls, and the V pattern is the best way to accomplish that. So you always want to get that practice in. Make sure that you're going up and down, up and down. That's the ultimate thing that you want to practice because that will force you to hone in on your technique, to make sure that you're always getting the kills, that you're always getting the bulls. And the thing that's nice about practicing it at the same time is that the kill shots are so much smaller. It makes you focus on such a smaller target. So when you go to the bull seems so much easier now, and it seems so much simpler. So, you know, the saying goes, aim small, miss small. So when you're going to practice, make sure you're always going up and down for practice. I try to avoid doing, you know, 50 here, then 50 here, then 50 there. You can do that, but in reality, the motion that you're going to be playing with in a tournament is in that V pattern, because when you're hitting a bullseye on, let's say, the 4th throw, you're going up to 5th, you have to hit the kill shot. Then after you hit the kill shot on 6, you got to go back down to bull. The V motion mirrors exactly the gameplay that you'll face in any sort of league or tournament play. So again, the 3 main things that we went through were focusing on drops and eliminating them completely, making sure you have the right tools in place, and making sure that you're finding the right axe meant for your throw. The other thing that you want to do is you want to focus on minimizing any sort of motion. So the second thing we talked about was accuracy. And in order to eliminate accuracy is you have to eliminate any sort of swaying motion from your legs. It starts from your feet, making sure that they're planted like a rock, and making sure that you're lined up perfectly and that motion is minimized and you're not introducing any sort of kind of swings with that elbow. So you want to make sure that the elbow is always straight, that that motion is repeatable, and you're essentially trying to throw a dart that weighs almost 3 pounds. The third thing you want to do is just practice. And practice comes in the best format of doing that V-shaped pattern. You always want to try mirroring what's going to happen in the gameplay. You're never going to go for 50 bullseyes. You're never going to go for 50 kill shots in a row. What you are going to do during a game is alternate from the kill to the bull to the kill to the bull and back and forth. So the V pattern is the best way for you to practice that technique. Hope you guys enjoyed the tips. Thanks very much for watching. If you have any questions, leave in the comments and we'll answer them. Thanks very much, guys.